I think Dracthyr need more transmog options. So, Dracthyr were introduced in Dragonflight to mixed reviews. Some, such as myself, like the funny little floppy lizards, and others would have preferred the much wider wingless Draconid, which we will probably never get because they are much too tall and would never fit through 90% of doors. But this video isn't about whether Blues should have catered to the Barra crowd or the Twin crowd, it's about transmogs. Dracthyr cannot transmog. Well, they mostly cannot transmog. They have a visage form with the usual transmog availability, but if I wanted to play an elf, I would play an elf, and my furry ass wants to play a flying gecko. The Dracthyr form itself does have at least some transmog options, and by some, I mean 3 slots, shoulders, tabard, and belt, and only belts with 3D elements. If you scroll far enough, you'll soon realize that belts that are just textures cannot be seen. When combined with the Dracthyr's in-build barbershop customization armor, you can get a nice looking outfit, but there are limits to the system, and I want options. I want my Drac to wear a hat. The question on most people's minds in regards to this topic is, but why though? Why can we not transmog more slots on Dracthyr? What makes them so different from, say, Worgen, another furry race, albeit one without wings or a tail? Around the release of Dragonflight, Blizz said something along the lines of them not wanting to hide the model maker's hard work. And while I'm sure everyone and their mothers called bullshit on this answer, I do want to take the time to talk about their hard work. I often see people call Blizz lazy when it comes to making Dracthyr, and while that certainly may be the case for Transmog, I do want to glaze the Dracthyr model itself a bit. Dracthyr are beautifully made. They have a ton of customization options, and in particular, the animation crew put in a lot of good work. Yeah, the run animation is a bit funky, but the facial emoting and the battle animations are done wonderfully. The wings actually feel like another pair of limbs rather than some cheap costume wings glued onto their backs. It can't have been easy to animate a creature of 6 limbs and a tail. But with the glazing over, it's time to get back to the topic at hand. Friendship ended with glazed donuts. Now plain donuts are my best friend. And the fact of the matter is that despite overall liking the model, I want hats on my Dracs. Of course, doing so is probably easier said than done. I am not a 3D artist, so I don't really know the nitty-gritty as to how this all works. But I'm also not one to blame someone for not doing something without first understanding why they might not have done it in the first place. So I did a bit of Googling to try to understand the actual functional reason for the why. It was actually rather hard to find a reliable source. All the YouTube videos I found about Dracs and Transmog were basically just tutorials on how to use the barbershop armor, and 99% of Reddit posts on the topic simply claimed the reason was because Blizz was being lazy. No actual real understanding of the topic that I could dig into. I did find a few possible explanations. One person claimed that the Dracthyr model was a different type of model than the players, one that didn't support transmog with the current game code. Another claimed that had to do with the fact that Dracthyr have multiple body choices, perhaps the reason for the former. They seemed like they could be the right explanations, but the problem is, as I said earlier, I am not a 3D artist, and thus lack the knowledge to properly fact-check these claims. So I searched around for something I might more easily be able to observe for myself. I ended up downloading a program called wow.export, which let me view models, but more importantly, the texture meshes. Scary, isn't it? So here we have a blood elf, and here is an orc, and a tauren. The location of the face and head texture are obvious, but looking to the middle and left, we see that these are a bit harder to make out. I eventually figured out that the middle section is the torso, legs, and feet, and the left is the arms and fingers. Flipping through the various races again, and you can see that while the face layout varies between races, the main body and arms have the exact same positioning. Why is this important? Because if I now add armor to this model, look at that, the texture mesh now includes the armor. This is how all the non-3D assets work. You have your base texture, and then the armor texture is simply pasted on top. Now it shows up on your character. And as I flip through the various races again, we can see that no matter which race, the placement of the armor piece textures always stays the same. It even works for some non-playable races like Naga. This is what allows Blizz to make new armor sets for one race and have it magically work for all other races, the occasional need for slight adjustments aside. So what about Dracthyr? Well, if we now switch to the Dracthyr and look at their texture, and oh my, it's completely different. Well, the head textures are in the same relative spot, but the rest, I'm going to be honest with you, I am having trouble making out what's going on. But the obvious thing is that the body textures seem to be orientated horizontally rather than vertically. So with this completely different texture orientation, it becomes clear why Blizz cannot simply switch the Dracthyr Transmog button to the on position. If they did so, it would be a complete mess, as the armor textures wouldn't line up at all. This doesn't mean it's impossible, but it's going to take a lot more work than most people think. So why did Blizz do it this way? Why didn't they just do the textures like all the other races? I have no idea. Do I look like I work at Blizz? My first assumption was that they maybe needed to lay things out differently because of the wings. However, I was unable to even find the wing textures. I'm not even entirely sure that's the right answer. Hello, editing me here to tell you that I'm blind. I have merely to click on these arrows to find the other textures that I'm looking for. There I found the wings and the horns and all the armor textures. And last but not least, we have where they store the tabard texture, which is, I think, roughly where the same location as is on the other races. It's just on a different file, but as you can see, it's blank. And here's me doing the same thing on Blood Elf. You can see there's like way less texture files on Blood Elf. It's only 3, whereas Dracthyr had like 7 or so. I didn't count. So that's textures, but related to textures are geosets. Geosets are these 3D features added to the model, which mimics the shape of a piece of clothing. Also hair and ears and whatever other 3D customizations you can think of directly attached to your character. A lot of these geosets take the texture from the same texture file I showed earlier. This can have some weird results when it decides to not work properly. Wearing certain pieces of gear, in particular certain helms, actually disable geosets, in most cases hair, much to the chagrin of the more fashion-oriented moggers out there that want to show off their fabulous hairstyles. But also, in more recent expansions, Blizz has introduced certain helmets that just straight up turn off your entire head. Dracthyr also have a ton of geosets, but these are more for body customization and not actual mogs, with the exception of the tabard. I couldn't help but notice when looking through the Dracthyr geoset list that the inbuilt armor wasn't actually present. Also, for some reason I couldn't get the horns to work in this program. I don't know if that's just this program or if it's something else. The final way Blizz lets you customize your character is by actually just making 3D models and then sticking them onto your character. So think shoulders, helmets, 3D belt buckles, and all those other 3D assets on the newer sets. I'm not really sure exactly how they work, but I think the pieces likely have some sort of anchor point on them, and then they're just like attached to the bones of the actual player model. Playing around in WoW.export does show that 3D assets do kind of work on Dracthyr. They just need to be set up properly. I've decided to play around with Dracthyr a bit just to see how the helms look like. Yeah, look at that helm. It doesn't look too bad. It needs to be adjusted. Like a bit bigger and move forward a bit, but otherwise not too bad. I'm sure this stuff would look fine if it was actually positioned properly. What else do we got? What about you? Oh yeah, it's not too bad. I mean, it kind of looks bad. The effects don't really work in this program very well. They're just like these blue sheets. Yeah, this looks like one of those helms that you'd have to adjust around the snout. What about you? What about a mage set? Oh, look at that hat. That looks nice. Look at that. Don't even really need to adjust that too much. Now, obviously I couldn't get the horns to work, so I don't know what it would look like without the horns, but you know, you could always just like turn the horns off. And here's an example of a set that turns your eyes off. This is another helmet that probably wouldn't look very good on Dracthyr. It would need to... Actually, how does it look on a Worgen? Worgen. I mean, it might work on Dracthyr if they did that to it. Oh yeah, it's not bad. I think this is one of the helms that actually like deletes your head though. Because I know in my Night Elf Priest it deletes the ears at the very least. Yeah, this is... Okay, so this would be like a fire ring above its head. It's not working in this program, but yeah, just like adjust it a bit, move it forward, down a bit. It'd probably look good in the actual game. What about you? You're just kind of like a hat, right? Yeah, just a ring above the head. That would work if it was positioned properly. That work? Kind of. Once again, positioned properly, resized. Monocle? I cannot see the monocle. I don't know where the monocle is. Oh wait, there it is. It's It's behind the eye. It's right there. Yeah, just like move that forward a bit and I'm sure that would work. Look at that. Look at that. Just move it down a bit, maybe change the angle a bit. It's not bad. Yeah, that definitely needs adjustment. Okay. Yeah, that's just, this is more of like a neck thing. Just move it down, make it slightly bigger, that would work. And what about this? Oh yeah. Just needs to be just the front of the angle at the front needs to be fixed, otherwise not bad. Oh, what about just like a regular hat? Oops. Look at that. Look at that hat. Look at it. Dracs would totally look okay in hats, you know, assuming it got fixed. Pirate hat. Look at that. See, that would totally work if it was actually just placed properly. That would work if, once again, it was just placed properly. Just move it down. How's that look on a Worgen? One sec. Yeah, so just do that. But on the Drac. Okay, what about a scarf? How does that look? Where is the scarf even? I'm not really sure. Scarf? Okay, I don't know where the scarf is. Scarf is lost somewhere inside, maybe? Can I zoom in that close? No, I can't. Also, I should point out that every time I change the chest piece, let me just... sure. Equip. The pattern on the tabard changes, so like the tabard at least is taking from the model armor. Does this scarf work? No. I don't know where the scarves are. Oh, there's the scarf. It's way up there. Okay. Mystery solved. Yeah, just like make it bigger, make it longer. This is one of those helms that I think looks good on Worgen. Where is the Worgen? Yeah. I guess you could always RP your Worgen as being a Dracthyr of Mogs by wearing this helmet. Let's try this cap. Yeah. Yeah, it looks okay. Kind of placed right. I feel like Blizz, like, at least tried at some point to get the helms to work. And then they just, like, gave up after a while. Because, like, at least most of the helms are, like, vaguely in the right place. They're just not quite in the right place. The Niffin hat. Yeah, look at that. Come on, Blizz. Give us the Niffin hat on Dracs in-game. You know you want to. Four swords, antlers. Try that. Yeah, look at that. That looks so good if it actually fit properly. Come on, Blizz. Just give us the hats. That's all I want. It's the hats. The other pieces can wait. Just give me the hat. Just give me the hat, please. Please, Blizz, the hat. No flower coming out of my head. I think these are supposed to go. It's supposed to go in your mouth, like a cross. I think at least. Let me. Yeah, like that. No, it's coming out of my head. It's a bit silly. Mushroom hat. Yeah, just literally just like move it down 3 inches and it would be fine. Oh, top hat. Top hat. Yeah, just move it a few inches forward and like a couple inches down. And you got yourself a Drac and a top hat. Yeah, that would probably take some adjusting. Actually, what does it look like on a Worgen? My Worgen are my go-to for comparisons. Yeah, they literally just like moved it way forward. I guess it kind of like hats kind of work on Worgen more too because their heads slope downwards and sort of, and also the hunching. Most helmets look silly on Worgen, really. Let's try some more sets. That's a silly looking hat right there. Very silly. Oh, maybe it's this one I'm looking for. Yeah, look at that. That looks pretty good. It just needs a little bit of fixing. Just needs a little bit of fixing. Just make it bigger and move it forward a bit. And yeah, the snout will probably stick out of the darkness and look silly, but like, whatever. I'd rather have the option than there's all these 3D sets, right? Like all these other 3D pieces. Just gotta like move them into place, you know? You know what I mean? It's like all the pieces are there, they're just not in the right place. Yeah. Hello, editing me here again. I forgot to mention the back slot. Now obviously Dracthyr have something already on their back, their wings, big flappy wings. So it's kind of understandable why Blizz wouldn't want to add anything to the back, because I think it would just like clip horrendously. I think having regular cloaks might be possible if they could just like kind of animate it to fold when the wings are like this, and then maybe lay it flat when the wings are out. But stuff like backpacks and like fancy back slot items, like you know, all the stuffs and like these, all the Shadowland stuff, those probably wouldn't work without clipping horrendously. I understand that adding full transmog options to Dracthyr might be a bit more of an undertaking than players think, but I think at the very least, if Blizz cannot figure out the texture situation, they should at least give us the 3D bits that come with certain transmogs. We have it for belts, why not for everything else, including hats, especially hats. Hats are so important when it comes to giving your character, well, character. Whether it be an eye patch, bandana, chef's hat, glasses, scarf, yes I count scarves as hats, they go in the head slot. They all add to the personality of your toon. Hats are important visually because the head and face in general is an important focus area when it comes to character design. That being said, I do foresee one hiccup in giving Dracs hats, and that's the fact that unlike Worgen and Tauren, their snouts are different lengths. You can see here the difference between nose 3 and 4 is rather substantial. I am not a programmer, so I don't know for sure, but something tells me the code is not set up for helmets to adjust to snout sizes. So how could that be solved? Well, the easy way out is just to adjust all helmets to the longest snout size, which would probably wind up looking rather silly, but most helmets already look silly on Worgen anyway, so might as well just do it and give the players the freedom to just pick a better looking hat. There are plenty out there that don't involve covering the snout in any way. Okay, but what about the rest of the armor? Well, I have an idea of how Blizz could do it without completely having to overhaul the base Dracthyr texture. I got this idea observing that the main body of the Dracthyr's tabard is actually a separate 3D object that reflects whatever texture is in the chest slot. If Blizz can make us barbershop armor, why not just make us blank barbershop armor that regular armor textures can be mogged onto? I'm not sure exactly how it would work with armor geosets like gloves, but I'm sure they'd be able to figure it out, probably. That's as much theorizing as I can do about how Blizz could accomplish this with what they've built already. Once again, not a programmer, not a 3D artist. For all I know, the spaghetti code might need a lot of untangling before something like that is possible. Which leads me to my last question. So what can we, the players, do about it? How do we push Blizz into giving us hats on Dracs? Well, probably not much in reality, but that doesn't mean I'm not going to try. I'm not really the type to try and pressure Blizz into making changes I want to the game. I recognize that the game serves many types of players, and something that I may like, someone else may hate. But we aren't talking Atompocalypse here, we're talking Transmog. And are there really any players out there who would say no to more Transmog options for Dracs? Even people who are like, if you want the Mog options, why did you pick the race that can't Mog? I don't really see actively being mad at more options. Like, it just seems to me like one of the very few things that the entire player base can agree upon, which is rare, very, very rare. The player base barely ever agrees on anything. So how do we apply pressure? Well, aside from the usual begging, I think we can take another approach. Sometime last year, I started a project I call Dracs and Hats, where every day I would draw a Drac and a hat in a bid to try and get Blizzard to add hats for Dracs. I eventually got bored of drawing just heads and swapped to full body mogs, and my output dropped off a cliff because, as it turns out, drawing something of 6 limbs and a tail and a getup with rather complicated patterns is very time consuming. That being said, I'm still doing it. I'm still drawing Dracs and hats. Slowly but surely. Please, please add more hat options. Free me from the consequences of my own hubris. And well, what if you did that too? If housing made one thing clear to me, it's that Blizz reacts very positively to creativity in the player base. I'm of the belief, perhaps foolishly, that if enough people start drawing Dracs and hats and posting them somewhere Blizz can see them, then maybe we can light a dragonfire under their asses and get them moving on this. I mean, who knows, maybe they've already started. Ian did mention a while back that Dracthyr would be getting more barbershop options. That's something at least. Not really what I'm looking for, but it's something. Blizz, if you are watching this, please split up the main armor color and the trim and make them separate options. Also, we need more color options in general. Do you know how many variations of gold there are in this game? So whether you're a good artist or no, I'd like to see more people drawing Dracs and hats. Post it to whatever social media you use and tag it #Dracs and hats. Just keep pestering them until they give in. Prove to them that there's an audience for this. I suck at outros. Fight the good fight. Thanks for watching. Bye. #Dracs and hats.